also the past president of the chamber. Rahul Lokani, convener of the committee. Past president of the chamber, Ajit Vira. My dear friends and seniors. In this current VUCA environment, managing business is a challenge for every business also. Not only for the businesses, but also for the professionals. What is a VUCA? VUCA stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexities, and ambiguity. You will all agree, or you would experience also, current tax environment is highly complex. And these complexities lead to ambiguity and also to the uncertainties. It is said that principle res judica is not applicable to the assessment, to the tax proceedings. Hence, assessing officer every year takes a different stance. Further, the innovativeness, they also innovate during the assessment proceedings. For example, recently, under TP assessments were completed on the basis of what the LinkedIn profile has been there of the assessee, and that was accepted by the tribunal also. So they have been innovative in all these things. Innovativeness keeps on changing every time. For example, one of the largest IT company which collapsed, the issues with the promoter. Ministry of Companies Affairs took very proactive stand and superseded the board. And this time the board was not superseded by the bureaucrats but by the true professionals. Subsequently, they helped the takeover of the management by the other company. They were able to manage class action suits in the foreign countries also. But when coming to tax proceedings in India, things have not been settled till now. They say that SSC has himself inflated the income, so he will tax that income. We also inflated income, also inflated expenses, but we will not allow the deduction for the expenses because they are not actually incurred. So there is high-handed approach by them at times. Yesterday, certain initiatives were taken by Finance Ministry and certain trade circulars or trade notices and press releases has been issued, which says that if any, in the CBSE states that if any initiatives or whether representation made by the any trade bodies, same should be accepted or same should be taken with the proactiveness and should be necessary steps should be taken. They also instructed the chief commissioners to do something, to act on those things very fast. The litigations have been, they also said that litigations, proactive approach should be there so that we can reduce down litigation. But the approach till now what we have been experiencing is not so. Hopefully this may take shape in the coming days and probably in the later part of our profession we may experience the litigation-free environment. I can give one live example, another that 3 years back when I was dealing with some counterpart in Singapore, and we had some matter where we couldn't get any solution. So I asked that counter professional there, why don't you check the precedents in your country or legal court rulings and you can we get some answer to this. So what is a court ruling? He said till now we have not more than 100 court rulings. And we have 100 court rulings every day. Yesterday's press release also emphasized that there should be cleanliness in office, punctuality, timeliness in appointment, and avoiding unnecessary adjournments. And they reiterated that when the scrutiny assessments are done on the basis of AIR, CIB or 26 AS, then the matter should be, information should be sought on showing ground on those points only and not. But though this instruction was issued some time back, but still when I inquired with my friends, assessing officers are not been acting on these instructions and they have been working on it. But certain instructions were issued some couple of years back also, and then in one of our cases the addition was made. But at the tribunal level, when we went, the tribunal accepted those things and said that these additions are not valid, and they struck down the additions. This was beyond the AIR. Considering this high time for the assessments, no adjournments are being given, the committee thought of having this program. Let us educate the members, refresh our things on the legal part, and they have well designed program on the whole day program on the assessments and the legal proceedings is there. At Chamber, we have been doing many things. We are trying to do some programs innovatively. For example, last Saturday we had a program here only, where we had a one case study, analyze direct tax angle, indirect tax angle on the case study as 360 of the transaction. So direct tax, international tax, domestic tax. On the indirect tax front, we had VAT, service tax, excise, customs, foreign trade policy. Whole gamut surrounding these transaction was analyzed. Similarly, considering the TP litigations, the coming months we have announced one program on the managing litigations under TP in the month of December. The details are available on the website. And another thing, that Companies Act, which has been now been amended, and we expect certain further changes in the coming days. But it's a time for all professionals, whether senior or junior. We need to unlearn the things and learn something new things. Considering this chamber has organized the RRC or Companies Act in the month of December, and you may all take benefit of this. With this, I pass on the proceedings to the Ketan Vajani, the chairman of the committee. Take it forward. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. Speaker for the day and past president of the chamber, Shri K. Gopal, President R.S. Bhai, past president Jeet Rohira sir, seniors and friends. I also extend a warm welcome to all of you to this seminar on assessment proceedings, reassessment proceedings and settlement commission. The purpose of having this program, as President has rightly pointed out, is to educate ourselves on the ongoing assessments. As we all know, assessment is the first proceeding in the whole series of proceedings which the assessee is bound to suffer thereafter. And this is the first proceeding, so to say, which lays down the foundation for the future for the final determination of tax liability of an assessee. If due care is taken at this stage, at the stage of assessment, then probably various other difficulties can be avoided which can come. And Gopal sir is here with us, he will agree that as a counsel he might have experienced many things where, because the fundamental details and the basic details were not filed in the proper manner, or proper representation was not made at the assessment stage, the assessee finally suffered at tribunal stage also, and maybe the High Court also could not help in that situation. So with that idea in mind, we will have this seminar is structured in such a fashion that we will have a complete, the holistic approach about the assessment proceedings. And we have designed it in bifurcated into 4 sessions, where we will be doing with the entire things in a compartmentalized manner. The first session which we have now is will be dealing with about law of evidence. The evidence is very important always in anything. Unless and until you have evidence for or against you, you cannot prove anything. So evidence is very important. So what is the importance of evidence, law of evidence, what the Indian Evidence Act says, that we will discuss in this. Also, Gopal sir will deal with some of the fundamental concepts of reassessment, because this year and the earlier year we have seen reassessment is more frequent. 148 is not that uncommon now. It has become so burning problem, reassessment on various issues, including suspicious dealer, share premium and whatnot. So this fundamental concepts of reassessment will also be discussed in this session. In the next session, we will have some current burning topics and we will have a deliberation on that, and Mr. Vipul Tralshawala will take us through that. Thereafter, we will have post-lunch, we will have sessions on some practical tips of do's and don'ts during the assessment proceeding. There are very fundamental basic things, but if you take care of those things, probably your hardships will be avoided. So that will be there in the post-lunch session. And finally, we will have a session on settlement commission, because Now the Finance Act 2014 has also enlarged the scope of settlement commission to an extent, and you have to have an idea about how the settlement commission functions, whether in what situation you can go to settlement commission, in what situation you cannot go, what care you should take. All these things will be discussed in the final session, which will be the last session, and it will be taken by an eminent professional in the form of C.A. Chetan Karia. With that backdrop of this full day seminar, I again welcome you all to this seminar, and feel that you all will have a very good learning session. Please, after the seminar is over today, you are all more than welcome to please share your feelings, please give your feedbacks. We will be more than happy to address those difficulties if you have any. All your suggestions are most welcome. Please keep on sending your emails, they are very valuable to us. With that backdrop, I think about the seminar, I would now have a pleasant task of introducing today's first session speaker, Shri K. Gopal. Well, to introduce Gopal sir is a pleasure for more than one reason. First is that a friend, a dear friend, philosopher and guide, always a motivating factor for me. Whenever I do something, he is there always, he is motivating me, and therefore, on personal front, he is a friend, philosopher and guide. When we come to the chamber platform, again he is a friend, philosopher and guide for the chamber, past president of the chamber, and therefore always a helping hand with us. And when we go to our committee per se, Direct Tax Committee, I am very proud to say that he is our advisor for this year of the Direct Tax Committee, and he is always helping us and guiding us in the right direction. On professional front, as all of us may be aware, probably Gopal sir is an advocate practicing in tax matters since 1994. He earlier started with Dr. K. Shivram's chamber, and there from 2004 he is practicing on his own, mainly in the field of direct tax and litigation before tribunals, high courts. He has been he has authored so many articles in our journals, including the Chambers Journal. Presently, in fact, he is the editor of the Chambers Journal, the Chambers mouthpiece. And he was the president of the Chamber of Tax Consultants, our own chamber, in the year 2009-10. And he is presently a member of the Managing Council of the All India Federation of Tax Practitioners. He has been involved in various public interest litigation concerning taxpayers in the case of, say for example, against VDIS and also against the service tax which was imposed on the chartered accountants. Many things to be added, but if I keep on speaking, probably it will be encroaching upon your own time, where we will be more interested in listening to Gopal sir, and therefore I would confine myself to this. Only to just to conclude, always a person available to us. In fact, when this seminar was structured, I requested him. He was having so busy schedule, but then initially he was saying that I will not be able to make it. But on my request, he has been agreed to give today's talk. Sir, we really welcome you to this your own house, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here. Of course, when in your own house, it's nothing to be welcome, but it is for us to feel proud to welcome you, and therefore I welcome you to this seminar for today, sir. With this, I request all of you to welcome Gopal sir with a loud applause. Before I request Gopal sir to give his talk on this very important topic, I would request President Paras Savla to please offer a memento to Gopal sir as a mark of love and respect. I would request Gopal sir to please address.
Good morning, friends. Good morning. President Paras, Ketan, my colleague Rahul, and many stalwarts and my seniors like Ajit Rohira, and I am amused that Mr. Sinha is also there. So you can very well, instead of listening to me, ask him what the department expects as an evidence or proof of something is not being income. Anyway, that's jokes apart. I am thankful to Ketan, Hitesh and Paras for putting me to take up this topic. One thing I will say is a topic where law has settled. As far as evidence law is there, it is settled. But before getting into that, Ketan has said so many nice words about me. So I would like to understand. As an advocate, we try to decipher what is said. You all may be understanding what is learned assessing officer is. Understand? Everybody knows. Similarly, a motivator means the tormentor who keeps on pushing for something. She said, I am a motivator. I was, and Paras and Ketan are rightly saying so. Unless and until you take up some task. In the morning I was watching news where our Prime Minister was trying to clear mud on a bank of Ganga river. Unless and until you are a motivator in that matter, otherwise you will not understand what it is. Second is an advisor. You know, for anything to hang you need a hook. For any mistake you need an advisor because you can hang on to that. That is the advisor was there. But I am very happy to share that, shoulder that responsibility with Ketan because I know that he never commits any mistake. Very happily agreed to that. So now with this I will come to the today's, my job. As I mentioned in my first page itself, Rahul was very helpful, kind enough to share his PPT presentation, and he has helped me preparing this also. Now friends, a brief history of the Evidence Act. Just try to understand how it entire thing starts. There was a blind man. He wanted to know what is a pudding, or let us say in Hindi what is kheer. So said, have you can eat it and tell, no, I don't want to eat, I am fasting today. You have to explain it to me. That person said, it is white in color. A blind man, what white in color means what? Said, okay. You know that there is a bird called egret, is white in color. Egret, I don't know. How is the egret? He said, it is like this. Oh, this is how the white is. So for that blind man, white was in the shape of an egret. So our entire assessment proceedings also, we try to keep telling something, he questions something very basic, and we try to discharge our onus. One or two very basic concepts which I have given. First, the evidence law, what was the background, codification took place, what was the need for that. As we know, whenever we try to explain something, then there is a question. You have to start from one point which we say that it's a postulate. Anybody who is there in this hall who has appeared in Chartered Accountants examination when there used to be logic as a subject, very good. Thereafter, institute realized logic and accountancy don't go together, so removed it. So in logic, you say sentence and preposition is not the same. Preposition is an idea which runs through a sentence. Similarly, whenever you make a submission, that is not evidence. Along with the submission, when you give something to substantiate it, it takes the shape of evidence. Evidence is something which you believe and you want to explain it to somebody and you substantiate with that. That's a very simple, very basic. I am not getting into the very, very detailed thing because under evidence law, which is practiced as an advocate in court of law, and what we do in Income Tax Act is quite different. Because Income Tax Act, any fiscal law which proceeds on presumptions, where Rahul will, if anything I am not able to, Rahul will subsequently tell you, 106 where presumption starts. When you enter Income Tax Act, there is a presumption part because nothing can go beyond evidence law when it comes to discharging onus. Now there is, usually we say that the onus has shifted to the assessing officer onus. One concept, burden of proof always shifts, onus never shifts. And once any act, any fiscal law on which you are having a proceeding where onus is caused on the basis of presumption, the person who has to do is initial onus he has to discharge to shift the burden of proof. Burden of proof will always remain with the assessee under Income Tax Act. Burden of proof will shift to the assessing officer once initial onus is set. We will deal with that little later. Now, for the time being, I wanted to start the what exactly law means to us. Now, my Evidence Act, whether law of evidence is applicable to the proceedings under income tax or not, in a very lucid manner, Bombay High Court in the case of 94 ITR 616 has explained. Here I will take liberty to explain in my subsequent these slides. I have referred to another decision. By the way, I will go by my stream of thought rather than by these PPT slides, because that will connect it. Here, question came whether rules of evidence are applicable to the income tax proceedings or not. This is a typical case where one person was caught with gold. He was having a launch in which he was smuggling gold. Matter went up to Supreme Court and he was convicted. When it came to income tax proceedings, he said, okay, all that has been proved in the other can't be used because law of evidence is not applicable. So there was contrary views by that time. Madras High Court was there, which said yes, you can't invoke those laws to assess an income, and it seems quite logical also. Suppose I am a trader, I am a dealer in gold. Ajit Bhai brings and gives me gold. By the time rate takes place, that is a gold. I am fully aware of that. That is not a legally brought gold into India. But then also I am, using it for manufacturing jewelry, making jewelry. Can I be held responsible, or that can be treated as my income? I may be held responsible. You may have a presumption. You can confiscate. Can you treat that thing as my income? But then, here exactly now understand the entire how evidence law plays out under Income Tax Act. The moment it is found on person Mr. Ajit Rohira, now Ajit Rohira for all practical purposes is the owner of that gold. If he wants to say shift the burden of proof, onus is on him, then he has to give who is the owner. He says that Ketan is the owner, he has to prove it, he has to give. Not that he has to give the title of, prove the title of Ketan Vazani. No, he is not required to do that. But he has to lead evidence to show that he is not the owner and Ketan is the person who has delivered to him, because he doesn't know. Ketan may have delivered. Ultimately, the owner is Hitesh. Ketan is only operating on behalf of Hitesh, because Hitesh is a very big operator. So now question comes in how to shift the entire burden. There exactly section 68, 69, 69A, B and C. These are the rules of evidence which are incorporated under Income Tax Act, so that we can, these presumptions, once what they do, if in this situation, what is the section they are going to invoke? They are going to invoke section 69 or 69A or 69B. Any of these sections they are going to invoke. I am not dealing with each and every section specifically, but that's how they do. So now here, once the rules comes, so under the evidence law, you will have to understand how you have to throw back the burden. Now throw back the burden on the assessing officer. Ajit Bhai will have to say that, you see, this is the document, this is the delivery, this is the person who has delivered, he stays at such and such place, and he gives all the details. Now he has no need to give anything further. Then assessing officer, he can make that person make an investigation and find out whether Ketan Vazani. Ketan Vazani definitely going to say that Mr. Rohira may say anything. I am not the person who has done it. Now then what happens? Then what happens? The burden thrown on the assessing officer goes back to Mr. Ajit Rohira again. Okay, this is the point. At that point of time, Mr. Rohira should say, see, this is the details how he have given, you have confiscated, I don't have any claim on this, you do whatever with it, but I am telling you, this gold was delivered to me on such and such dates, in such manner, And he is the person who has done it. And if he has not done it, I mean, he has given this statement, I would like to cross-examine that person. Now, by this time, assessing officer said that, see, he has said that, no. Once he has said that, I will not accept, and usually what happens is, the learned assessing officer stops all investigation at that point of time and makes an addition, and Mr. Rohira becomes the owner of the gold. Because anyway, the law is such, he can be assessed for that income, but he cannot be, given that gold. He will not given gold. There is enough protection is there, because that kind of once he claims that it is not. Now, subsequently, one more issue comes up, which is not actually my scope of today's thing, but it is very relevant. Can Mr. Rohira say that? Ultimately, I am into the business of gold. I am dealing with that. Can this be a stock in trade? And as I have lost the stock in trade, so what should be the consequence? Anyway, we'll come to this little later. Till then, you apply your mind, think about that, whether what will be the situation. Now we'll move on to after this history, I will come to applicability of Evidence Act. I already, these details which I have given is with respect to whether special court and how. Why I have not dealt with in detail here is because what we need in assessment proceedings, all this may not be relevant. But to this misnomer I want to remove, evidence law is not applicable. No, that is not the case. The rigors of rules are not applicable. Otherwise, what happens in a court of law? Once you make a claim, a party which accuses will have to lead certain evidence so that they are able to establish the whatever they are accusing. Thereafter, he will get an opportunity to say whether it is a. In between, court has to decide whether they are satisfied or not. That is what the charge sheet stage and all those things come. Because these are all the parameters very relevant for that purpose. So I have taken out only the crux of this, a diluted version. Otherwise, this is a very good information which will be very useful for you while dealing with this. Especially this, what is primary evidence? Now, primary evidence, secondary evidence, oral evidence. Now, here, while discussing with that, I will come. A tax audit report in the case of an SSC. What is the value of that? What is it? It's a primary evidence, secondary evidence, what kind of evidence it is? A certificate issued. Chapter 6A deduction is there, or 10A, 10B, any deduction. This is a certificate issued by a chartered accountant. What is it? Is it an evidence, documentary evidence? What is it exactly it is? Under Income Tax Act, as I mentioned earlier, if any claim you make, then presumption is that you have made a claim which has to be established. The onus is on the assessee to establish that he is eligible to make this claim, and if he is not able to do it, deduction will not be allowed. Whether section 30, section 37(1) or chapter 6A, anywhere. Now, in chapter 6A, because of the books of accounts. Books of accounts are primary evidence as far as your business is concerned. So a certificate is prepared on that basis. Audit report is there. Audit report compiles various information as sought by the department, like 40A3, 40A1A. Now 40A3, 40A1A or 43B, this information he takes up and relies on that and says that, no, I am making a disallowance. He is relying on what? He is not relying on any evidence. He is relying on information supplied by you. So presumption is to whatever is the information provided on that basis. So what is your recourse there? It is a rebuttable presumption that may not be following any of the specific sections of the Evidence Act. But that is a presumption. Once you make a claim, because under income tax we go by voluntary compliance. So you are filing a return, you are making a claim, then it is presumed that you are making a correct claim. Now you have to justify. As you have made a claim, you have to justify whether that is a claim is genuine, you have got the